Okay, crew. Today we're going to go into the bellowing hilltops. I recommend you talk to some of the local farmers first. Hey farmer man, any words of advice? I'm going to the bellowing hilltops today. Yeah, just make sure you avoid those booblas. Booblas? Booblas are giant green creatures with stripes that go horizontally. But bootlas are giant green creatures, stripes who go vertically. They're very friendly and I would like to own one as a pet. A few awkward moments later. As you crawl over the hill, you see your first bootla. Awesome, I'd like to take the bootla back to the farmer. Now that we're back in town, I would like to, before you say another word, begins ripping apart villagers. The rage. Wait, what? Hold on there. You said it was a bootla. Yes, it is a bootla. The deadly one. You said bootlas were friendly. Well, we all make mistakes, like bringing a bootla back to town.
Welcome to SquidPublic. Slay the like button, subscribe for more content, join Patreon for one-shots and other content, as well if you liked the video, leave a comment down below. Thank you for watching.
The thing you need to perfect, or at least come close to mastering, is communication. Communication is more important than balancing, role-playing, descriptive speech, story arcs, and whatever have you. If you are unable to communicate effectively, you will not have a good time or fun in Dungeons & Dragons. The three aspects that make up great communication are: you need to be able to understand what's being said. And this is essentially what I will call speaking the same language. And when I say language, we can talk about coding language, German to German, English to English, however have you. You need to understand the language which is being spoke. This is the knowledge portion of communication. Ability to process and understand new knowledge. This is typically listening versus hearing, and adequate time is needed for this process. The final part of communication is verifying what has been said. This should often be done in your own words and made into simpler concepts to show that you understand what was communicated to you. The first point actually happens to people who speak the same language all the time. We are able to technically communicate with one another, but even though we're speaking the same language, it does not mean automatic understanding. Now, and vice versa, if someone's speaking German to me, and even though technically what they're saying is perfect communication, I don't understand German well enough to be able to communicate. Therefore, we don't even pass step 1 because I don't know what they're saying. Transition this to D&D. You've made politics, monsters, and relationships your players may not yet understand or have knowledge about. Therefore, when you start throwing out names and circumstances, your players need to go, wait a second, this makes no sense. What are you talking about? What should we know to understand what you're trying to say to us? You're saying words they can understand, but they don't understand what you're saying. That's where communication automatically falls apart at the first point of contact. They had no previous knowledge to know what you're actually trying to say. How do we fix this issue? I'm going to assume your group is able to communicate in the same language, or at least some form of communication. If you can't, this is definitely not the video for you. The most dangerous thing we can do is assume that our friends or people who have been playing our campaign for a while means we're going to have automatic understanding, or at least a better chance to communicate. For political gameplay, it may be better to send a group a message before and say, hey, here's the parties, here's what their relationship is, and also bring a handout to the session with some of that same information. This will allow the group to reference handouts without constantly interrupting the DM. It will also give them an opportunity to transition to step 2, which we haven't talked about yet, but it'll also give them time to understand, as they'll have a handout in front of them, and during snack breaks where, someone needs to go to the bathroom, they can read up on the lore while you wait around. And returning to the little skit above, I did shorten it a little bit for my first time through. The only difference between a boobla and a bootla were a giant green creature with stripes either went horizontally or vertically. They had no idea what these things looked like, how they acted, and how they could have definitely have known. Obviously the DM miscommunicated and said that the one was dangerous and the other was not. That's just another form of miscommunication, but there was also a lot of miscommunication because there wasn't enough knowledge given to the party to properly identify what a bootla and what a boobla is. If we do create a monster as a DM, we should do our best to give adequate descriptions and comparisons. I'm going to read a small description here of a creature I created, but then I'm also going to give an adequate comparison, and you're going to see that you're going to be able to paint a much better picture once I give the comparison rather than the description. I'm going to be looking to my right here to read the description, so just bear with me. A four-legged creature with white fur, long snout, and piercing yellow eyes charges you. The legs are longer and the hooves click across the ground as the distance closes. The description is adequate, but we can still have a wide variety, as I have not said how large the creature is and exactly how long those legs were. However, if I said, oh yeah, it's a wolf body and tail with deer legs, got you. That should give you a much better description and image if you understand what a white wolf looks like and what a deer looks like. Point 2. We need time to process knowledge. We all do. As in real life, we don't read the whole textbook the night before and then suddenly become the doctor the next day. Well, hopefully we don't do that. If you lore dump or exposition dump for 20 to 30 plus minutes, your party's eyes are probably going to glaze over and they're probably going to forget about the last 30 to 40 minutes of that information. If we introduce new information, it needs to be done either via handouts, before the session, or small bite-sized chunks where the characters can interact and further their understanding. If you can't get around having complex information, let's come back to the comparison. Let's say you're trying to describe a society to your party. If you know about Prohibition in America, you could say it's like the times of Prohibition in America. There's crime, secrecy, booze, lots of money to be made, police involvement, all that stuff instantly paints a picture. And that's kind of the world you created. You instantly save yourself a lot of description. Your party can immediately download an atmosphere, and then you can twist and tweak it where you need to. What happens if I can't find one overarching theme across the whole entire thing? It's okay to go down this path, such as political, social, status, whatever, with the same comparisons. For example, we're going to take political, and we're going to take social. We could say it's like the Cold War, where two powers are juxtaposing for power, and no one really wants to start a war. And then for the social, you could say it's like the king and queens kind of day, where obviously the peasants provide everything for the upper class, and there's a very small percentage of people who actually live in royalty. Therefore, that image for you should paint that there's a possible war that's about to erupt, and it's probably going to happen based on royalty, as the masses do not have a lot of power. And finally, players, there's a difference between taking notes and looking at Instagram, Facebook, and the next hot thing on Reddit. Give your DM their respect when they're trying to do their exposition and lore dump. They've worked really hard on this campaign and their story, especially if they created it on their own. So write down some notes, write down some classes you know are going to go throughout the whole campaign, and try to learn them to the best of your ability. It's okay to ask questions, but when you ask the same question about 6 sessions in a row, your DM's probably going to be a little annoyed. But once again, thank you DMs for all your time and effort. It's very much appreciated. Another great aspect of allowing your players to have time to think through stuff, it may save some dumb decisions. Bad decisions are often made out of lack of context or lack of knowledge. Now, I'm not saying bad decisions or dumb decisions will not still occur. We're all human, but it should hopefully reduce the amount. Point 3. Find a way to repeat information back to your DM or DMs. If your player just described something to you and you're not entirely sure what they said, try to say it back in simpler terms to them, or at least in your own words. This is a great time to practice your role-playing abilities, as you can be a befuddled villager saying, I didn't quite understand that, could you please say it again? Or something like that, and then have your player once again role-play, and you have this great back and forth, but at least you'll be communicating effectively. Before I continue down this point a little more, don't confuse bigger words or words that sound articulate with actually communicating better. We've all probably taken out a dictionary and a thesaurus and made what should have been a simple sentence into a tragedy. Please give me your best fluffed up sentence that could be said in a much simpler way. I know we've all done it. We have to hit those word counts. We definitely have to hit those word counts. If you find that your players are struggling to repeat information back to you, they may not be listening, or you, the DM, may not be communicating well enough. But things to look out for to understand is, did I give too much information? Too little information? Was it not enough time to process? Was I too descriptive and I actually shouldn't have been that descriptive because now my party is focused on the wrong thing? Communication is difficult and something that we can't really ever truly perfect, as the way we communicate and the settings in which we communicate are constantly changing. Therefore, your skill of communication can be great in one area and can be horrendous in another. We have to identify when we're able to communicate well and when we have to go slower so we can go through all the steps listed above. Because as you get new players or new DMs, bonus actions, actions, spells, and all this other stuff are words we recognize in normal life, but when they come to D&D, they obviously have different meanings and take a while to learn and understand. And sometimes we can't even come to an agreement on what an action or bonus action truly is. One final review. Make sure you can understand what is being said, i.e., speaking the same language or at least in the same situation in which everyone should understand the words that are being said. Point 2. Give players adequate time if you just exposition dumped or described a scene or room to them, because they're going to have to process what that means for their characters and their future decisions. And part 3, make sure people can break down what you said into simpler ideas and into their own words. This should verify that they did hear you and they understand how to process it onto a simpler level, which often means understanding. Communication is something we take for granted, but it's truly something that is difficult to master and is something we certainly cannot perfect. Thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful. Like and subscribe below.